University of Waikato question and answer session. Today it's all about cyber security and cyber crime. Being online exposes us to cyber criminals and others who commit identity theft, fraud and harassment. Every time we connect to the internet at home, at school, at work and elsewhere, or on our mobile devices, we make decisions that affect our cyber security. What's being done to prevent cybercrime? What can we do to protect ourselves effectively? And can laws of privacy and transnational law be applied to cybercrime when it's just so complicated to administer? Today you may get some options and some answers from our panel of three. We've got Dr. Ryan Coe. He's a senior lecturer with the Computer Science Department at Waikato University. He researches cybersecurity, cloud data provenance, applied cryptography and cloud computing security and trust. He heads the Cyber Security Researchers at Waikato, commonly known as CROW, and serves as the science leader in the $12.23 million MIMBY-funded Stratos project. Next to him is Associate Professor Wayne Rumbles. He's Dean of the Faculty of Law at the University of Waikato. He teaches and researches in the areas of cyber law, law and new technologies, criminal law with a focus on cybercrime, and he teaches with Dr. Crow in New Zealand's first Masters of Cybersecurity here at Waikato. And then we have Jeff Gurray. He's a doctoral student at the University of Waikato in computer science and a recent returnee as an intern at Interpol. A current security challenge for mobile platform users is lack of security situation awareness features that could alert them to security events. And so Jeff is searching for methods that can help users understand security events through visualizations easily and efficiently. And he'll explain more about what that means as we go on. Ryan, if we can start with you, is cybercrime as rife as we've been led to believe?
Yes, in fact, the size of the entire cybercrime, we will call it industry, the size of the impact of cybercrime is now larger than the size of field drug traffic around the world. So this was a survey done by Norton behind the antivirus in 2012. They were mentioning that the size of cybercrime has now overtaken trafficking of heroin, marijuana, and all the opium-related drugs in the world. Every day, you get about more than 100 cybercrime incidents in New Zealand every day, and it's very common to see different attacks attacking high-profile people all the way to the common folk daily. So yeah, that's the overview of what we're facing right now.
So you've got, like you say, high-profile organisations being attacked, and obviously individual users. What sort of things happen to them in the attack?
So usually they now we're seeing more sophisticated attacks. We're seeing more phishing attacks. For example, attackers will send you an email that looks like something you would expect, or from someone you would expect. For example, like your boss, your manager,
your bank.
Yeah, and your bank. Or maybe even your school, an organization that you're expecting. It looks exactly like the same email, except that the URL, the hyperlink on the email actually leads to a malicious website, which then starts to steal your information. For example, it can lead you to a fake Google login page, which looks exactly like the real one, except that you're now keying in your login information into a fake website, and after you press enter, nothing happens. And then you suddenly realize that, oh no, there's something wrong with that, but it's too late.
They've got your details.
They got the details, yeah. And then from there, it takes just one person in your organization. So sometimes they could send an organization email saying that there's a massive retrenchment or reorganization, staff are laid off, those kind of alarming news. They'll be capturing the attention of at least one person in your organization, and it just takes one person to click on that link. And after that, when the information is stolen, the hackers will then start to take control of the entire organization. It's not uncommon. In fact, a few years ago, Associated Press, one of the prominent news agencies was attacked in such a way where the account that was managing the Twitter account for Associated Press was being taken over, and then the hackers actually went in to say that the President of the United States was attacked in the White House on that day, and then that fake tweet actually resulted in the drop of the Dow Jones Industrial Average. So you can see the impact of such a thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. It makes criminal law seem quite straightforward by comparison. How do you devise law around cybercrime?
So I guess there's three ways that the legal system has responded to that. One is to make specific changes to the law to have, like we have in the Crimes Act, we've got sections that against unauthorised access, or as you more commonly called it, hacking. And those sections are specifically targeted towards online criminal activity. We have other areas such as the Electronic Transaction Act, which also targets activity online and makes it equivalent to those offline. And more recently, we've had the Harmful Digital Communications Act, which is not fully enforced yet, but is to deal with the kind of crossing over between antisocial behaviour to criminal behaviour online. So that's one way, is to make specific laws. The other way is to modify the interpretation of current laws, which we've done in the areas of fraud. For example, most fraud sections in criminal sections deal with using a document, for example, to document to defraud, or a document to gain a pecuniary advantage. So our courts over time, as the internet has become more prevalent, have interpreted a document to include a piece of software that you download off the internet will also be considered a document. A document is something that is scribed and can be recovered, and so they've decided code is the way of recording the content, and it can be recovered and used to reflect. So therefore, software is a document. So therefore, they've interpreted the law to fit the new environment. And then there's other areas where we still have to catch up. The law still has to catch up. Copyright's a good example for that. Copyright is really constructed around an offline world where you've got publications, perhaps even video recordings, but it isn't really set up to cope specifically with an online environment where pretty much everything you do is copying.
Have we seen many cases come before the courts? Have we seen many convictions?
Yes, there's a number of convictions. In New Zealand, the actual convictions tend to be at the lower end of the scale. But there has been a growing number of jurisprudence around, especially around unauthorised access and the fraud sections. We're still to see how the Harmful Digital Communications Act, but there has been a number, it's been at least 6 revenge porn convictions under the Harmful Digital Communications Act within the last 6 months.
Jeff, can you tell us what your research is about? Because it can involve sort of law enforcement agencies, can't it?
Yes, my research is basically, excuse me, is basically security visualization for mobile platforms. We've seen nowadays the attacks are more directed towards mobile users. So because it's becoming one of the main focus, putting situation awareness into mobile platforms would be of interest. The idea is to provide a method or a technique that could actually alert users whenever there's a security event, for example, a mobile banking trojan which attacks a specific user. How can the user near real time understand and know that he's been or she's been attacked? So that is the area of research. In terms of law enforcement, again, they are more concerned about attribution back to the actual attacker, and because social media or those type of applications are used basically over mobile platforms, they feel that that is one of the areas which they could use and attack it, those types of attacks, and they're interested in actually using that to actually identify, for example, through the phishing attacks, which leads onto a bigger crime scenes, such as the organized crimes, which of more interest to them, which again leads to Bitcoin currencies and everything. So that is some of the specifics where the research goes into. Another reason to that is that visualization has a broader way of actually providing situation awareness to users, basically the end users, and it can be used to actually facilitate information exchange and sharing among the law enforcement. Overall, it's the idea is to preserve the data and the underlying data, but actually use visualization to explain some certain form of attacks which are happening over the internet.
Okay, we've had some questions come in. This is from Lucas, who says, I'm no IT whiz, but I know enough code to understand the various methods. Talking around, it seems to be effectively impossible to secure digital products. The best advice I got was that if it's copyable, it's hackable. So rather than trying to fortify, we should play nice and give would-be hackers reasons to protect us. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I mean the question, the person writing the question, thank you for that. I think made a good point that it's impossible to fully secure a digital product or information because there's always some kind of security loophole that someone will find, and it's always a cat and mouse game. The most important, I think, prevention that one can perhaps look at is to have first the awareness. The weakest link in the society right now is not about the lack of tools or that can help big organizations like the government agencies or the banks, but the biggest gap are the tools that can help everyday users. So most of us would have no knowledge about how to help ourselves in this kind of situations. For example, you probably, most of us would probably not have an idea of how to help ourselves if we find out that we are being hacked.
No, I wouldn't.
Yeah, so
what would I do?
Yeah, so this is the kind of tools that we need, right? So that as much as you can secure your house, if you can secure your house, you put your security alarms or CCTVs and so on. Those are the things that you can do to empower yourself. Sometimes even the CCTV is connected to your mobile phone, and you can see what's going on your house, maybe in another geographical location. But for the cyberspace, we don't have such tools. Yeah, we don't have such tools to empower all of us in our everyday lives, and that's a right statement. It is now also starting to become a trend where most of the researchers and the practitioners in every aspect of the industry assume that data, the systems will always be insecure. Yeah, so that's the general assumption. That's why there's a recent focus on cryptography instead. So because if you can secure the data, no matter which area that it passes or where it's stored, if it stays encrypted and can only be turned on by the user themselves, then it's more secure than trusting the pipes that are processing the data. So I hope that answers the question.
I think I understand. Do you want to pick up on that?
So I think around you can have really good laws sitting behind. So I'd argue that our hacking laws are pretty, in terms of the way they're constructed, are very good compared across internationally. But if you have someone who either leaves their front door open, or if you've got a manufacturer of an alarm that then has a key to that alarm that allows all criminals to access that, that's where we're at the moment with networks kind of environment, is that there isn't really an obligation on the providers of products to secure their product, other than to try and keep their reputation. But we also have the users who have very little knowledge of what they're doing, so therefore they basically leave their networks exposed. So there has to be, you can have good laws, but you need people to be able to, the resources to enforce those laws, and you need to have an obligation on the suppliers of the product to secure their systems that they're selling to the public.
Do you think it'd be a good idea then to have a sort of a national public awareness campaign? I know they've done that in the States, and we have awareness campaigns for a lot of other social issues. So would it be a good idea to do that here?
Yes, definitely. In fact, they have been doing that for a few years now.
Have they?
Yes, they have. So there is a National Cyber Policy Office set up with the Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet. So they have created an awareness campaign called Connect Smart. And Connect Smart is an initiative that's led by the NCPO to equip. They started from equipping daily users and small and medium enterprises because of the small and medium enterprises form about 97% of our economy. So they started to target, and so far the campaigns have been quite effective. They created I think the audience, if they are next to a browser, they can surf for toolkits with the Connect Smart initiative. They could download the PDF, and there's a checklist for people to actually equip themselves with risk management. So that said, there's a lot more to be done. We should get into schools. We should get into the public sector. We could even have posters everywhere to remind people to lock their screens when they are not at their desk, for example. It's a bit like those wash your hands campaign and prevent the flu kind of campaigns. So anything to add from Jeff and
I would also think such awareness to schools would be a very good direction to get towards, because kids learn quite fast. And for example, if there's an iPad in front, they just click. Giving such awareness, once they do something, they learn from that, and they sort of like share information at a very rapid rate. So giving awareness would be very helpful.
We could have a cybersecurity awareness month, do you think?
Yeah, that would be great. And we have to raise awareness in several forms. I mean, for example, there is the border security and border patrol kind of shows, right? That used to educate people about the biosecurity of the country. We could even have shows on TV that tells people about the basic threats that they face. Or we could also empower the awareness of techie guys. People who are technologically inclined, or they might have an interest in this area, and show them some form of an avenue to understand better. So that's why we have created the New Zealand Cybersecurity Challenge, for example, to raise awareness amongst the technically inclined people as well.
And I agree with Ryan that any awareness campaign has to be multi-leveled. It has to be targeted at businesses, so they change the culture within a work environment. People are used to being able to be always online, take their own devices to work, which can create security issues, and there needs to be a raise in awareness at that level. There needs to be, and I think we're getting there in terms of kind of infrastructure and government awareness, but the weakest link is still the average user at home.
Yes.
If they don't keep their own network secure, then therefore they make other networks vulnerable.
We are only as secure as the weakest link of our whole waka.
Nicely put. Do you think there's any value, Wayne, in cyber insurance?
Cyber insurance, like any insurance, you have to read the terms of the insurance, because it'll only cover specifically what is in there. I think cyber insurance, depending on what are the risks to either your business, it does have some value. It is still a very new type of insurance, and I think the market still needs to mature. But there is some value, I think, in terms of, especially if your business is dependent on a networked environment.
Do we know where the majority of cyber criminals are based, or is that impossible to know?
It's a yes and a no kind of question, because you can tell where the servers are, but the technology has now evolved to such a state where a server that's in country A could be controlled by someone sitting in country B. And Or maybe it's a server controlled by a country B server, controlled by a country C server, by a guy sitting in country D.
So we've had a case here in New Zealand where a chap here up in New Zealand was using servers through the Pacific, triggering through the Netherlands and actually attacking a Pennsylvania university.
And so, if you find the criminal, whose laws are they charged under?
So depending on which jurisdiction where they're located, there will be a contest. So in the example I just talked about, both there was the Netherlands, the American, and New Zealand all had technically jurisdiction over the case. In that particular case, they negotiated and came to an agreement that that person would be prosecuted in New Zealand. But you can see areas such as Mr. McKinnon in the UK, or our own Mr.com here, where you've got contests between jurisdictions, and to prosecute them, they need to be extradited. So it is a complicated area in terms of to assert jurisdiction, but there is processes in the courts. Sometimes they take a long time.
They sure do.
And sometimes it ends up being a political decision rather than a legal one.
Gotcha. I don't know if this is your area of expertise, but from Norway, why does Facebook always ask me to change my name or provide a birth certificate? Is that normal?
That doesn't happen to the bulk of Facebook users. It only happens if Facebook suspects that your account is facing some potential identity theft. So it might be a good idea if you are more aware of who has access to your accounts. Is it well secured? Or you could just shut down the account altogether and create a new one. Yeah, because sometimes the request for the identity is genuinely the proof that you are indeed a person. However, it could also be a malicious screen where we have seen cases of, they call it clickjacking, where on a legitimate Facebook page, you could also see malicious screens that pop up and ask you for information which don't belong to Facebook, but if you will then enter in because you think that because it has a blue color theme and it looks legit with the same fonts, you might key in something. So my advice to the user would be to probably start a brand new social media
Facebook
account.
page. I hope that was useful now, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Another question, I recently saw a YouTube video from Canada where two-factor SMS authentication was compromised via identity fraud. Somehow the attacker convinced a mobile provider to send a replacement SIM card. How can we tell how well equipped our telecommunication providers are to handle something like this?
Would you guys want to chip in, or?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a number of cases where, and it's like what Ryan said before, it's the weakest link. So if you have an operator who will reset someone's password, for example, and do that over the line without following the protocols that have been set in place for that business, then that compromises that. And same with here. I'm sure the actual telco had protocols on about sending out a replacement SIM to make sure that they were sending it to the identity. But in this particular case, perhaps the operator or the person they were contacted didn't follow those procedures. So again, it's the weakest link in terms of the access to the network.
Yeah, we're also seeing this. So two-factor authentication. Yes, there has been certain reports about the protocol being compromised, but at the same time, it is the most effective method so far, and is stronger than plain password entry. So it actually weeds out maybe 80% of the attacks, and it kind of saved the manpower and the man hours that's involved to solve potential breaches without a two-factor authentication in place.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that also points to one of the things that I was mentioning earlier. The users are not empowered with the ability to know. So in this case, even if you're belonging to or you're subscribing to a telco, you don't have the tools to tell whether your account was compromised or your connection was compromised. And that is the the main goal of our lab and our Stratos project, which is to return control of data to users.
I was going to say, can you talk a little bit about the Stratos program? Because that's MIMBIC funded, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. So Stratos is an MBIE funded project. It's a science investment project. It's about 12 million for 6 years. Our main goal is to create made in New Zealand DIY security tools for users of the cloud, for users with internet connection. So in the security space, you see a lot of tools that are made by vendors for vendors. So if I'm a large company and I can afford, to get the security experts and the techniques and the technology to come and protect me. But how about the everyday users? So that's what Stratos is trying to do. We're trying to increase research into potentially creating new products in the form of, there are 4 main research aims. The first one is to understand what has happened to your data. And number 2 is can we protect the data and it stays encrypted and process it while it stays encrypted. So it's actually not possible to do that right now. Encrypted data has to be decrypted at some point of time. Number 3, can we know what happened? So this is where Jeff's research comes in. His research falls under the third objective, awareness, real-time awareness. Can we know what happened? If we know what happened, can we have the ability to stop what's happening? If I know that my photo on a social media account is being maliciously accessed by someone who's working in that company, and they have the admin rights, but they are not my friend, but they're looking at my photos, for example, I would be able to know that it happened, and I can stop it, or I can revocate the actions. And number 4 is a doomsday scenario where everything just goes down, and can we actually come back quickly back to business again? Websites like TradeMe, for example, is totally dependent on the web shop front, and every minute that they are down actually is money lost.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's what Stratos is trying to do. So that's the goal. Our goal is by 2020, New Zealand is known for DIY security tools.
So how's it going so far?
So far, it has been quite good. We are now having some industry partners who are now trying to commercialize some of our inventions and our innovations. So we have about 4 industry partners who are working with us, and also we have the Waikato DHB and the police working with us as well.
One of the areas is with trying to prosecute people who have made security breaches that it's often hard to tell what they actually did, the steps, and you need those steps to be able to present as evidence in court. So this also feeds into successful prosecution. You need the evidence to be able to prosecute.
The more detail, the better.
Yeah.
Yes. So one of the first aim is what has happened to your data. We are actually tracking what actually changes the create of the file. For example, the reading of the file, the opening, all those little actions can be recorded in a very high integrity form, which then can become a digital evidence for the use of court. And that's our goal, is to provide those kind of accountability. Maybe I can also let Jeff describe a little bit more about his visualization work as well.
With the type of visualization, the idea behind that is actually to also preserve the data, which at the end, if it gets submitted into the court, but the actual raw data is there. But what you're visualizing, it is less detailed, but very simple for the judge, for example, or the audience to actually look at it and understand that, there's an attack, and this is the source, this is the destination. So it kind of portrays the information in a clear sense that will actually help users and in terms of law enforcement attribution back to the source of the attack.
So the goal is to make it easy for someone to understand what went on. Because right now, if you look at all the cybersecurity tools in terms of visualizing data, you see things flying around.
Yes.
Yeah, but you can't do anything about them, right? So the goal is for us to show not just things flying around, but where is the exact problem and what has actually happened. Can we do something about it quickly? Can we call the right person to stop it?
And also, in some sense, giving the control to the user to actually visualize a certain event on any given time that is more interested in. So you're actually empowering the user and giving it, instead of reading a whole set of data logs, which are very complicated and quite large. That log is transformed into visualization, which you just click and maybe swipe and have a look at it. You know, pictures speak 1,000 words, so pictures are more better to understand than reading a whole lot of logs.
Seems to me a lot of what you're saying sort of comes down to educating people to take care of their own security, as well as developing systems that are good at detecting flaws in the system, if you like. But what do you teach, say, on your Masters of Cybersecurity that are producing graduates that can kind of work in this field?
Yeah, so Jeff is actually the first graduate of the Master of Cybersecurity program. So the master's degree is a multidisciplinary degree. It has both the technical aspects and the legal aspects as well. So what do we teach there basically in three different areas. One is preventative approaches. The other one is understanding what is the offensive approaches. And then the third is to know how to defend, which is the much needed capability right now. How can we defend ourselves?
Mm. Yeah. So recently there was, I think, there was the cybersecurity challenge.
Yes.
What was that about?
Yeah, cybersecurity challenge is it's actually a competition. It's a national competition that we open up to people of all ages. So we had about close to 267 participants online. So they will come into we set up a website where they can try to test their cybersecurity skills, and then they'll qualify to be the top 150 to come here. And the whole goal of it, right, is to identify talent, is to bridge the gap between industry and the schools, because we have a lot of bright talent in New Zealand, but sometimes they might not know what are the potential career paths ahead, or they might not have the chance to network with experts from the industry, and vice versa. Yeah, so before the challenge itself, we actually have a series of talks and a career fair as well, so you can get to see the different aspects of the cyber security industry. That's from policy making all the way to being a penetration tester. Yeah, so I hope it addresses a gap. Worldwide, we see a lot of kind of over glorification of the dark side. We see hackers, right, being glorified. The goal of the cybersecurity challenge is to show that there's actually a lot of potential joining the light, the good side. Yeah. Yeah, and you can see a lot of potential career avenues there. So that's what we are trying to promote. It's interesting to note that the first prize was won by an industry group from Gallagher, and the second prize was also very interesting because the national champion was a 17-year-old from Cambridge High. So yeah, and he did very well. He was a one-man team against real industry security professionals who were trying to take down his servers, but he was able to defend them very well. So there's a lot of hope. Actually, we saw that, wow, this is wonderful. And I think the other aspect of the cybersecurity challenge is that we collected data because we don't have a lot of chances where a company which was hacked would share their data with us, with researchers. Jeff was a key member of the data collection team. Maybe I'll let Jeff.
Yeah, another aspect to the cybersecurity challenge is as researchers, we need some form of data to actually carry out research, and test data is very important. And because getting data from different companies is quite difficult in their policies and regulations, and then coming up with the cybersecurity challenge allows us to actually simulate our own scenarios and also collect data from them, and later on use those data to actually carry out some research and maybe understand behaviors or patterns of attacks, which could lead to useful forms of research and hopefully contribute to what we are doing here. So, yeah, data set is quite important as well.
Absolutely. So we keep coming back to education, and I guess we've got to educate the lawyers as well. Have we got specialist lawyers in cybersecurity? Or?
Well, I've been teaching in the area of cyber law for the last 14 years or so. So there's a number of graduates that have come out, and many of those are now situated in some of our major firms throughout the country and working in the IT cyber space now. So that's very exciting. The Masters of Cybersecurity, I think, is one of the most exciting things we're doing, because I sit in the class when I teach my class. Half of them will be law students, half of them will be computer science students.
Is that a happy marriage?
It takes a few weeks to get there, but it is a happy marriage. Because the computer science in the legal sphere, the computer science students will play a very major role in terms of being expert witnesses within the court and being able to explain to an average user in simple language that fits the legal paradigm what has gone on, and that is so essential. We need more expert witnesses. And also the lawyers sitting in there, that they can at least have a basic understanding of the network technologies and be able to then present that to the court in a way that the judge or the jury are going to be able to understand. So education is a key, and increasingly we are bringing people on. We have 2 new experts joining us in next month in the cyber area. So Waikato will be a hub of sort of cyber law for the country.
Well, that sounds good that we might be leading the way there. I think we have chatted long enough, unless there's something else you'd like to add. I think we're sort of in summary, we can say that yes, cybercrime is rife, that we could be doing more ourselves, particularly domestic users, and protecting ourselves, and perhaps nationally we need to be much more conscious of educating people in cybersecurity. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
I think one thing to think about when you're thinking about cybercrime, because cybercrime now covers a lot of other areas of crime. So you can think of even sort of drug area. People are using tablets to maintain their list of users and to set up meetings, or using virtual worlds to transfer money. So cybercrime is becoming infiltrating to all other areas of crime as well. So I think one day in the not too distant future, well, you won't have cybercrime as a kind of unit, but it'll be cybercrime dealing with theft, cybercrime dealing with fraud, cybercrime with offences against a person, for example. So it's not going to go away, and it's only going to expand.
But we will gradually adapt.
That's right. It'll be part of our whole social and legal environment.
Yeah, there are 3 main. It's a very huge gap, rightly said, right? There is a statistic that is quite interesting, is that every half a second, a new malicious software is being created, a new virus or worm is being created every half a second. And, when you think about this, how can we address or train enough professionals at a rate of every half a second? Yeah, so there's definitely a multi-pronged approach. We have to not just train the people and educate them. We also have to research into very smart, innovative ideas and change the game. Kind of change the game in a very simple example would be like the CAPTCHA. When you go into an online form, there's this funny looking diagram there which looks like a few alphabets, and you have to key in the alphabet to prove that you're a human being. Yeah. That actually weeds out a lot of the so-called, they call it the bots, right? The automated programs that throw rubbish at websites. Yeah, and just a simple invention like that changed the game. We need more of this. So I would like to encourage the audience, to think about more game-changing innovation, or if you are interested to do more research into such a game-changing innovation, contact us, and we will be able to see how we can help you as well. Yeah.
So you can go online and go to the Computer Science Department website, or Wayne is at Te Piringa Faculty of Law, and that's at www.waikato.ac.nz, and you can go from there. I'd like to thank you for joining us this afternoon and thank our panellists, Dr. Ryan Coe, Associate Professor Wayne Rumbles, and Jeff Garray. Thank you and good afternoon.